I get asked a lot of questions about how well do you sleep, how much sleep do you get, and when people see how hard we work, especially in pulmonary critical care medicine. And I smile because I imagine that people think that after you do residency and fellowship, that somehow or the other you work less. But in reality, after doing internal medicine, pulmonary critical care, and a fellowship in sleep medicine, we actually sometimes work even much harder than we ever did in pulmonary critical care and sleep medicine. So I'm wearing my cap of sleep medicine now, where we deal with cases like obstructive sleep apnea, narcolepsy, insomnia, and what the effect of sleep has on graduate medical education. My first accident I had, I was driving back from Suffolk County. I don't think I've had much of an accident since then. And I worked at a hospital called Good Samaritan at that time. And I was traveling back to Midtown Manhattan, where I lived. And I fell asleep and had an accident. And I remember also one of my co-residents who moved from the hospital I trained in Brooklyn into Faith and moved to Brooklyn. Moved to New Jersey and had to commute from her residency program to her home, and came back after a call and fell asleep and had a car accident. And I feel that that area still has not been taken care of by hospitals, where they first of all subject residents to fellows to areas where they have to drive far from where they live, because many of the programs first of all do not provide housing or make bargains with landlords to provide housing that's close enough for the people to live in. And therefore these residents end up having to live far and they drive to work. And essentially, when they are called at night, which is after 5 o'clock, they have to call in the middle of the night, come in when they are tired, and often end up subject to be able to fall asleep and having a car accident. So more people die really from drowsy driving, from being tired, than really from being drunk. And essentially, programs and hospitals who are supposed to care about public health are complicit in this when they train their fellows. So often enough, they do not provide call rooms, which is simple for the fellow who, after he finishes, to rest before he goes, or they create it in a place in which access to it is difficult. And often enough, they do not compensate them for the mileage driven and mileage driven back for the areas where they have multiple hospitals where that fellow or that resident has to cover. So in essence, we are killing off residents and fellows by having them drive long distances. So for example, he has a rotation in Long Island, but he's a downstate where he's a urologist, and therefore lives in Brooklyn and then has to commute when he gets called. And this, to me, is a major flaw in graduate medical education that needs to be corrected. So I made this video to say the simple common sense ways in which this should be corrected. We now have Uber, we have Lyft, you have a car service which the hospital can have an expense account with, where each time they are called, the person doesn't have to pay out of pocket first to be able to get safely to an area. And often enough, when people are sleepy, they make wrong judgments, and therefore they think they can get it somewhere on time, but they can't get there in time, and they fall asleep. And I think that this particular area probably needs to be fixed in graduate medical education, so that people do not learn the hard way that you are not able to stay awake long enough and therefore run into accidents. I believe that it is not being tough and being able to work so hard. What that does is create in the back that you have to be macho, you have to be strong to be able to stay awake. But there's no such thing. Once you are sleepy, you are sleepy. And once you are sleepy, then you become a risk both to yourself as well as to other people. And I think this part of graduate medical education needs to be fixed.